Captain Richard Hayes stood motionless on the bridge of the UES Harbinger. His eyes were fixed on the main display where dozens of red emergency signals blinked across the star map. Each light represented another Alliance world or fleet under attack. The bridge crew worked in tense silence, only the beeping of consoles breaking the quiet. "Another distress call, sir," said Officer Lisa Green. Her voice trembled slightly. "The Centauri Defense Fleet has fallen. They report some kind of new weapon." Hayes nodded grimly. Just yesterday, the 17 species of the Galactic Alliance had been celebrating 2 centuries of peace. Now the Vexeri Imperium had launched an attack so sudden and devastating that entire star systems were going dark within hours. "Put the signal through," Hayes ordered. The screen flickered to show an alien face. Admiral Krell of the Centauri was wounded, blue blood running from a cut above his large eyes. "The weapon," Krell gasped. "It bends gravity. Tears ships apart from within. Nothing survives. We cannot." The transmission cut to static. "Signal lost, sir," said Green. Hayes clenched his fist. Earth had only joined the Alliance 50 years ago. Humans were still seen as newcomers, barely tolerated by older species like the Vexari, who had refused all diplomatic contact with Earth. "Message from Alliance Command," announced Communications Officer Daniel Scott. "All diplomatic vessels are ordered to return to home territories immediately. The capital system has fallen." Hayes felt the weight of command pressing down on him. The Harbinger was not a warship but a diplomatic vessel, lightly armed and carrying Earth's representatives to peace talks that would never happen now. "Status of the nearest Vexeri fleet?" Hayes asked. 6 hours away and closing," replied Navigation Officer Kate Miller. "They've already destroyed the Arcturus station." "Plot a course for Earth," Hayes said. "But first, take us closer to the Centauri battle site. I want sensor readings of that weapon." Miller looked up in surprise. "Sir, our orders." "We follow orders," Hayes interrupted, "but Earth needs to know what we're facing. 5 minutes of scanning, then we run at full speed." The Harbinger moved silently through space toward the debris field that had once been the proud Centauri fleet. Bodies floated among twisted metal. Hayes ordered full sensor suites, recording everything. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual gravitational waves," said Science Officer Paul Bennett. "Like nothing I've ever seen before. The fabric of space itself was warped here." "Download all data," Hayes ordered. "This might be the edge Earth needs." The bridge doors slid open and Ambassador Ben Collins entered, his face pale. "The Alliance is finished, isn't it?" Hayes didn't sugarcoat the truth. "Yes, sir. We're heading home." "Home to what?" Collins asked. "If this weapon is as powerful as it seems, Earth won't stand a chance either." "That's where you're wrong," Hayes replied, turning to face the ambassador. "The Vexeri made one mistake. They gave us warning. Earth has something the other Alliance worlds didn't have when they were attacked." "What's that?" Collins asked. "Time," Hayes said firmly. "Not much, but enough to prepare. And this data." He gestured to the screens showing the sensor readings. "Knowledge is power, Ambassador." The ship shuddered as distant explosions lit up space behind them. "Vexeri ships approaching faster than expected," Miller reported urgently. "They've seen us." "Maximum speed," Hayes ordered. "Get us out of here." The Harbinger's engines glowed bright as the ship accelerated away from the battle zone. On the rear view screens, the galaxy seemed to burn with countless fires as more Alliance worlds fell. Hayes watched silently. Earth was just one planet, never fully accepted by the Alliance. But now, carrying crucial data about the enemy weapon, the Harbinger might be humanity's best hope for survival in a galaxy suddenly turned hostile. 6 months passed. Earth stood alone as the last major planet not conquered by the Vexeri. The once mighty Alliance was now just scattered survivors. Refugee ships crowded Earth's orbit, carrying aliens who had once looked down on humans, but now begged for safety. Captain Richard Hayes looked out the viewport of the upgraded UES Harbinger. The ship had changed. New armor plates covered its hull. Experimental weapon systems replaced diplomatic meeting rooms. But the biggest changes were hidden inside, where engineers had worked day and night to implement the extinction protocol. "Captain, Admiral Reeves requests your presence," said Officer Scott over the comm. Hayes found Admiral Samantha Reeves in the war room on Luna Base. Holograms showed the movement of Vexari fleets steadily approaching Earth from all directions. "They'll be here within 3 weeks," Reeves said without greeting. Her face was lined with exhaustion. "Most of our ships are escorting the civilian arcs to the far reaches. They need to get beyond Vexari sensor range." Hayes nodded. "The evacuation plan is working then." "It's the only thing that is," Reeves replied. "Billions of people can't be evacuated in time. Earth will fall, just like every other world." Hayes knew this. The extinction protocol wasn't about saving everyone. It was about ensuring human survival somewhere in the universe. "The Harbinger is ready," Hayes said. "But I thought we'd be assigned to escort duty with the other ships." Reeves shook her head. "You have a different mission." She activated a secure hologram showing Saturn's moon Titan. "We've been analyzing your sensor data from the Centauri battle. Our scientists on Titan have developed a theory about the Vexari weapon." Hayes leaned forward. "A weakness? Maybe. But they need more data. Data that only exists in the Harbinger's memory banks. Your original scans were incomplete. The scientists need your ship and its records. So while Earth prepares for its last stand, I'm running to Titan." Hayes couldn't keep the bitterness from his voice. "Exactly," Reeves said firmly. "Because if there's any chance of finding a countermeasure to their weapon, it's worth sacrificing everything, including our pride." Later, back on the Harbinger, Hayes addressed his crew. Many faces were new, specialists assigned to understand the Vexari technology. "Our mission is to reach Titan," he explained. "Earth will hold as long as it can to give us time." "This feels wrong," said Lieutenant Maria Valdez, his new second officer. "Leaving when the fight is coming to us." "It is wrong," Hayes agreed. "But sometimes surviving is more important than fighting battles you can't win." The Harbinger departed the next morning. They were halfway to Saturn when their sensors detected something alarming. "Vexari scouts," reported Officer Miller. "They've breached the outer system defense grid." "They're not supposed to be here yet," Hayes said. "Change course to avoid them." "Too late," Miller replied. "They'd spotted us." 3 Vexari scout ships moved to intercept. Small but deadly, each carried the devastating gravity weapon. "Battle stations," Hayes ordered. "Evasive maneuvers." The Harbinger shuddered as it changed direction. Its new weapons came online. The Vexari scouts split up, trying to surround them. "They want the ship intact," said Science Officer Bennett. "They're targeting our engines, not our core." Hayes realized the truth. They wanted the Harbinger's technology. Full power to forward shields. "Target the lead ship." The battle was brief but violent. The Harbinger's new weapons tore through one scout ship. The other 2 pressed their attack, firing their gravity weapons. The ship's reinforced hull groaned under the strain. "Shield failure in Section 4, called out Valdez. Hayes gripped his chair. Emergency burst from engines. "Get us into Saturn's rings. We can lose them there." As the Harbinger accelerated towards Saturn, Hayes watched the damage reports flood in. They would reach Titan, but only barely. And now the Vexari knew something important was happening there. The race for humanity's survival had truly begun. The Harbinger limped into Titan's orbit, its hull scorched and damaged from the battle with the Vexari scouts. Emergency repair crews swarmed the ship as soon as it docked at the hidden research station deep under the moon's icy surface. Captain Hayes stepped off the boarding ramp and was met by a thin man with wild gray hair and intense eyes. "I'm Dr. Alan Warren," the man said without offering his hand. "Your ship was supposed to arrive undamaged. This complicates things." Hayes frowned. "We were attacked. We're lucky to have made it here at all." Warren nodded impatiently. "Follow me. We don't have much time." They walked through busy corridors where scientists and engineers rushed between laboratories. The facility was enormous, carved into the ice and rock beneath Titan's surface. Hayes had never known this place existed. "How long has this been here?" Hayes asked. 20 years, Warren replied. "Ever since Earth joined the Alliance and learned about threats like the Vexari. This facility was built to develop weapons and defenses Earth might need if the worst happened." He paused. "The worst has happened." They entered a large room filled with complex equipment. In the center floated a hologram showing the Vexari gravity weapon in action. "We've been studying your sensor data for months," Warren explained. "The Vexari weapon creates a cascading gravitational field that tears matter apart at the molecular level. But there's a flaw in their design." Hayes watched the hologram with growing interest. "What kind of flaw?" "Every force has an opposite," Warren said. "We believe we can create a gravitational inversion field that would neutralize their weapon, maybe even turn it against them." "You can build this?" Hayes asked. "With your ship, yes." Warren pulled up schematics of the Harbinger. "We need to completely overhaul your power systems and install the prototype technology. It's never been tested in combat conditions." Lieutenant Valdez, who had followed them, spoke up. "How long will these modifications take?" Before Warren could answer, an alarm blared throughout the facility. A voice came over the speakers. "Vexari forces have breached Jupiter's defense line. All stations on high alert." Warren's face went pale. "We've just lost weeks of time we didn't have." Back in the command center, they watched as reports came in. The Vexari had launched their main assault on the solar system. Jupiter's colonies were already lost. Earth's defenses were holding, but everyone knew it wouldn't last. "We need to return to Earth," Valdez insisted. "They need every ship they can get." Hayes stared at the tactical display. The Harbinger was just one ship. It wouldn't make any difference in Earth's defense. "No," he said finally. "If Warren's countermeasure works, we could do more than just save Earth. We could turn the tide of the entire war." He turned to Warren. "How soon can the Harbinger be ready?" "With round-the-clock work and your crew's help. 10 days, maybe less." Valdez looked shocked. "Captain, we have orders to return." "Sometimes orders have to be disobeyed," Hayes said quietly. "If Earth falls before we finish, where would you rather be? Dying in a hopeless battle or carrying humanity's last chance for revenge?" The next days passed in a blur of activity. The Harbinger was practically rebuilt from the inside out. Its main reactor was modified to channel power to the new gravitational inversion system. Every crew member worked alongside the Titan scientists, knowing that each passing hour brought the Vexari closer to Earth. On the 6th day, Hayes received a message directly from Admiral Reeves on Earth. "The outer defenses have fallen," she reported, her image flickering with interference. "We'll hold them at the inner planets as long as we can. Whatever you're doing there, Hayes, make it count. This might be our last communication." Hayes looked around at his exhausted crew and the half-completed modifications to his ship. "We're running out of time," he said. Earth was burning. From the view screens on Titan, Captain Hayes watched as the blue planet fought its final battle. The Vexari had arrived with hundreds of ships, far more than anyone had predicted. Admiral Reeves had positioned Earth's defenses brilliantly, destroying dozens of enemy vessels, but it wasn't enough. "Mars has fallen," reported Officer Scott, his voice hollow. "The colonies there managed to evacuate most civilians before the end." Hayes turned away from the screens. The Harbinger's modifications were nearly complete, but they were running out of time. Dr. Warren worked frantically with his team, making final adjustments to the experimental gravitational inversion field. "The system is untested," Warren warned. "If we push it too hard, it could tear the Harbinger apart. If we don't use it, there won't be anything left to save," Hayes replied. The emergency channel crackled to life. Admiral Reeves appeared, her uniform torn and bloodied. Fire and smoke filled the background. "This is our final transmission," she said, her voice steady despite everything. "Our defense grid collected complete data on Vexari tactics and weaknesses. I'm sending it all to you now." She paused. "The evacuation ships got away. 8 million humans, and our Alliance allies are heading for the safe zones. The rest of us will buy them as much time as we can." The transmission ended with the sound of an explosion. Hayes stood silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Valdez. "Transfer all that data to Dr. Warren's team," he ordered. "It might help refine the countermeasure." Warren's scientists worked through the night, incorporating the new information. Hayes gathered his crew in the Harbinger's main bay. "Earth has fallen," he told them simply. "We are now the last warship of a dead world. But we're not finished. The Harbinger carries with it humanity's best hope for revenge and justice." No one spoke. Many had families on Earth. Their grief was too fresh, too raw. "Every one of you is free to leave," Hayes continued. "Join the evacuation ships if you can. I won't order anyone on this mission." Valdez stepped forward. "Where would we go, Captain? Our home is gone. I'm staying." One by one, the entire crew voiced their agreement. No one left. By morning, the Harbinger emerged from Titan's shipyard, transformed. Its hull gleamed with new armor, reinforced to withstand the stresses of the gravitational technology. At its core pulsed the experimental inversion field, drawing power from the enhanced reactor. Warren insisted on joining the mission. "My place is with my creation," he told Hayes. "Besides, there's nothing left for me here." As they prepared to depart, the sensors detected Vexari ships approaching Saturn. Earth's fall had not satisfied them. They meant to wipe out every trace of humanity. "They'll expect us to run," Hayes said, studying the tactical display. "To follow the evacuation ships." "What are your orders, Captain?" asked Valdez. Hayes looked at his crew, at the determined faces of men and women who had lost everything but still stood ready to fight. "Set course for Vexari space," he said. "It's time they learned that destroying Earth was their biggest mistake." He pointed to the nearest enemy ship. "But first, let's test our new weapon on that one." The Harbinger moved silently out of Titan's shadow, powering up its systems. The Vexari scout ship detected them too late. The gravitational inversion field activated, surrounding the enemy vessel in a shimmering bubble of distorted space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Vexari ship began to collapse inward, crushed by its own gravity weapon reflected back upon itself. Within seconds, it imploded into a tiny dense point before disappearing completely. A cheer went up from the crew. Warren looked stunned. "It worked better than I calculated," he whispered. Hayes nodded grimly. "Good, because we're taking this straight to their homeworld." The Harbinger moved silently through Vexari-controlled space. Captain Hayes had ordered all non-essential systems shut down to avoid detection. The ship's new stealth capabilities, combined with the gravitational technology, bent light around its hull, making it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. Like a ghost, Valdez whispered on the bridge, where the crew worked by the dim glow of emergency lighting. For 2 weeks, they traveled deeper into enemy territory. They passed worlds once filled with life, now stripped and barren. The Vexari were methodical in their conquest, harvesting resources, and leaving nothing behind. "Approaching the Antares sector," announced Officer Miller. "Sensors detect a small outpost on the third planet." Hayes studied the readings. "Alliance design. It might be a survivor colony." "Or a trap," Valdez cautioned. Hayes considered their options. They needed information about Vexari fleet movements if they were going to strike effectively. "Take us in," he decided, "but be ready to jump out at the first sign of trouble." The planet had once been an Alliance research station. Now it was a smoking ruin. As they approached, a weak distress signal reached them. "One life sign," reported Science Officer Bennett. "Definitely not Vexari." A small team, including Hayes and Valdez, took a shuttle to the surface. Among the wreckage, they found a man in tattered Alliance uniform. He introduced himself as Gregory Porter, an intelligence officer who had been analyzing Vexeri communications when they attacked. Back on the Harbinger, Porter shared valuable information. The Vexeri command ship is called the Dominion, he explained, pointing to an image on the screen. It coordinates all their forces. But there's something you need to know. Porter's voice grew serious. They're not conquering for territory or resources. They're powering their weapon. What do you mean? Hayes asked. Each planet they destroy strengthens their gravitational technology, Porter explained. The more they consume, the more powerful they become. That's why they haven't stopped. They won't stop until the entire galaxy is consumed. Dr. Warren looked troubled. That explains the readings we've been getting. The gravitational distortions are growing stronger with each conquered world. Hayes was about to respond when alarms blared. Vexeri patrol detected, Miller called out. 3 ships on an intercept course. They've seen us, Valdez said. Hayes made a quick decision. No more hiding. Power up the inversion field. Let's see what this ship can really do. The Harbinger faced the approaching Vexeri ships. As they came within range, they fired their gravitational weapons. The destructive energy surged toward the human vessel. Warren activated the countermeasure. The inversion field sprang to life, creating a bubble of warped space around the Harbinger. When the Vexeri weapons hit, they were neutralized, their energy dispersed harmlessly. Return fire, Hayes ordered. The Harbinger's conventional weapons struck one Vexeri ship, damaging it severely. The other 2 split up, trying to attack from different angles. The battle was brief but intense. The inversion field worked perfectly, but each use drained enormous power from the ship's systems. By the time they destroyed the last enemy vessel, the Harbinger was running on backup power. Damage report. Hayes called out as the emergency systems came back online. We lost our stealth capability, Valdez reported. And the reactor needs time to recover before we can use the inversion field again. Porter looked at the tactical display. It doesn't matter. They know you're here now. They'll send everything they have to hunt you down. Hayes nodded grimly. Then we don't have much time. He turned to Warren. Can the field be modified to affect their entire fleet at once? Warren thought for a moment. Theoretically, yes. But we'd need to deploy it at the source of their power. The Dominion, Hayes said. Warren nodded. If we could plant the inversion field generator on their command ship, it might create a cascade effect throughout their fleet. Hayes turned to Porter. How do we find the Dominion? Porter smiled thinly. I know exactly where it is. The Harbinger approached the dying star where the Vexeri command ship waited. The Dominion was massive, 10 times larger than any vessel they had encountered before. Around it floated hundreds of smaller Vexeri ships, a fleet that could crush worlds. Their numbers are greater than we thought, Hayes said, studying the tactical display. A direct assault would be suicide. Dr. Warren and Dr. Mitchell had worked together to enhance the gravitational inversion field. Now they presented their plan to the captain. We can't destroy the Dominion from the outside, Warren explained. But if we could plant the field generator inside their ship, at the core of their weapon system, the reaction would cascade through their entire fleet. You want us to board the Dominion? Valdez asked in disbelief. Mitchell nodded. Their ships are controlled by a central network. Disrupt that, and we might cripple them all at once. Hayes considered their limited options. How do we get aboard without being detected? We don't, Warren said. We let them capture us. The plan was dangerous but possible. Hayes would create a diversion with the Harbinger, drawing enemy ships away from the Dominion. Meanwhile, Valdez would lead a small team on a shuttle, appearing to escape from the main ship. The Vexeri would capture the shuttle, bringing it aboard the Dominion for study. Once inside, we'll have approximately 30 minutes to reach their weapon core and plant the generator, Valdez said. Hayes didn't like sending his crew on such a risky mission, but they had no alternatives. Earth was gone. The alliance was shattered. This was their one chance to strike back. Let's do it, he decided. The plan began smoothly. The Harbinger appeared at the edge of the system, immediately drawing attention from the Vexari fleet. As dozens of enemy ships moved to intercept, Valdez and her team launched in the shuttle, heading in the opposite direction. On the Harbinger's bridge, Hayes directed a masterful evasion, using a nearby asteroid field for cover. The ship's enhanced weapons destroyed several pursuing vessels, while the inversion field protected them from the worst of the enemy fire. Valdez's shuttle has been captured, reported Officer Scott. The Dominion is pulling it in. Hayes nodded grimly. Now we wait. Inside the Dominion, Valdez and her team allowed themselves to be taken prisoner. The Vexari constructs moved mechanically, showing no emotion as they secured the humans. But instead of taking them to detention cells, the Vexari brought them to a vast chamber filled with strange technology. There they discovered the horrifying truth. The Vexari weren't the real enemy. "Those containers," whispered Mitchell, looking at vast cylinders lining the walls. "They're holding something." Through the cloudy glass of one container, a pair of ancient eyes opened, eyes that belonged to no species any human had ever seen before. "The architects," one of the team members said in awe. "The Vexari aren't the invaders. They're just the tools." They realized the true nature of the threat. The Vexari were biomechanical constructs created by these architects, ancient beings who harvested galactic civilizations in cycles spanning thousands of years. The gravitational weapons weren't just for destruction. They were preparing the galaxy for the architects' return. Using the confusion of their discovery, Valdez led her team deeper into the ship. They fought their way through Vexari guards to reach the central weapon core, a massive orb of swirling energy at the heart of the Dominion. "Plant the charges," Valdez ordered as they secured the room. "We have 5 minutes before they break through." As her team worked, Valdez accessed the ship's database. She downloaded everything she could about the architects and their plans. This information might be the key to saving what remained of the Alliance. The door to the chamber began to glow red as the Vexari tried to cut through. Time was running out. "Charges set," reported one of her team. "Good," said Valdez. "Now we just need to get out of here alive." While Valdez and her team fought inside the Dominion, Captain Hayes led the Harbinger on a desperate battle for survival. Dozens of Vexari ships surrounded them, firing their gravitational weapons in coordinated attacks. "Shields failing in Section 3, called out Officer Bennett. "We can't take much more of this." Hayes guided the ship through an asteroid field, using the larger rocks as cover. The Harbinger's weapons tore through 2 pursuing vessels, but more kept coming. "We need to keep them busy for another 10 minutes, Hayes said. "Valdez needs more time." Miller looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Dominion. They're powering up their main weapon." Hayes watched as the massive command ship began to glow with deadly energy. Whatever they were planning, it wasn't aimed at the Harbinger. "They're targeting the star," Warren realized. "They're going to collapse it to harvest the gravitational energy. If the star collapsed, the resulting explosion would destroy everything in the system, including the Harbinger and Valdez's team." Inside the Dominion, Valdez and her team were surrounded. Vexari guards blocked their escape route back to the shuttle bay. The charges were set on the weapon core, but they would be useless if Valdez couldn't transmit the activation signal to Hayes. "We need another way out," Valdez said, checking the ship schematics they had downloaded. Dr. Mitchell pointed to a maintenance shaft. "This leads to an external hatch. We could use our emergency spacesuits." As they fought their way toward the shaft, the ship rumbled around them. The Dominion was moving closer to the dying star, preparing to harvest its energy. "The countdown is set," Valdez reported over the comm to Hayes. "But we're cut off from our shuttle. We're going to try an external escape." Hayes' voice came back distorted with static. "Understood. We'll try to get close enough to pick you up, but we're heavily engaged." On the Harbinger, Hayes ordered a dangerous maneuver. "Take us closer to the Dominion," he told Miller. "We need to be in position to rescue Valdez's team and be clear of the blast radius when those charges blow." The Harbinger took heavy fire as it pushed toward the command ship. 2 engine sections were damaged, and the hull was breached in multiple places. Emergency force fields were the only thing keeping sections of the ship intact. "Contact from Valdez," Scott announced. "They've reached an external hatch on the Dominion's lower section." "Get us beneath them," Hayes ordered. "Prepare for emergency retrieval." The Harbinger swooped beneath the massive Vexari vessel. Through the view screen, Hayes could see 5 tiny figures in spacesuits pushing away from the Dominion's hull. "Tractor beam locked," reported Bennett. "Pulling them in now." As the Harbinger's tractor beam caught the team, a signal flashed on Valdez's wrist device. The charges were about to detonate. "Full power to engines," Hayes ordered. "Get us clear now." The Harbinger accelerated away from the Dominion just as the charges detonated. The explosion was small at first, a mere flicker within the massive ship. Then the gravitational inversion field activated. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The Dominion's own weapon turned inward, creating a gravitational well that began to tear the ship apart from within. But it didn't stop there. Just as Warren had predicted, the effect cascaded through the Vexari fleet through their shared network. One by one, Vexari ships began to implode, crushed by their own weapons. The fleet that had burned a galaxy was being consumed by its own technology. Valdez reached the bridge, her face cut but triumphant. "The data we found," she said breathlessly. "The architects are coming." This was just the beginning. Before Hayes could respond, the ship's sensors blared in warning. The destabilized star was beginning to collapse. "Get us out of here," Hayes ordered. "Maximum speed." The Harbinger limped away from the dying star, its engines straining to reach safe distance before the final explosion. The Harbinger drifted silently among the debris field that had once been the Vexari fleet. The battle was over, but the ship was barely functioning. Dozens of systems were offline. The hull was breached in multiple sections. Emergency force fields were the only things keeping the atmosphere inside. Captain Hayes moved slowly through the damaged corridors, checking on his crew. They had survived, but at great cost. 23 crew members were dead. Many more were wounded. The medical bay was overcrowded with the injured. "Reactor status?" Hayes asked as he entered the engine room. Officer Bennett looked up from his console, his face streaked with dirt and exhaustion. "Main power at 12%. Auxiliary systems failing. We can maintain life support and minimal propulsion, but not much else." Hayes nodded. It was better than he had expected. They had escaped the star's collapse by the narrowest margin. The shockwave had nearly torn the ship apart. On the bridge, Dr. Warren and Dr. Mitchell worked to analyze the data Valdez had stolen from the Dominion. "It's worse than we thought," Mitchell said quietly when Hayes arrived. "The architects aren't just coming. They're already on their way." Warren pointed to the star charts on the screen. "According to these files, the Vexari were preparing the galaxy for the architects' arrival. They've done this before, in other galaxies. They harvest entire civilizations, consuming their energy." Hayes stared at the images. The architects' ships made the Dominion look tiny in comparison. "How long do we have?" "Months, maybe less," Mitchell answered. "The Vexari were behind schedule. That's why they attacked so aggressively." Lieutenant Valdez joined them, her arm in a makeshift sling. "Then we haven't won. We've only delayed them." Hayes looked around at his battered ship and exhausted crew. They had struck a devastating blow against the Vexari, but the real war was just beginning. Communications Officer Scott approached. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal. Alliance encryption. It's coming from Sector 9. Hayes felt a spark of hope. "The evacuation ships?" "Yes, sir. They established a colony on a planet beyond Vexari sensor range. They're asking any survivors to join them." Hayes made his decision. "Set course for the signal. Best speed we can manage." Then he turned to Warren. "We need to send them everything we've learned about the architects. They need to prepare." As the Harbinger limped through space, Hayes recorded a message for the Alliance survivors. He detailed their victory over the Vexari, the discovery of the architects, and the threat still to come. He included all the data they had gathered, hoping it would give humanity a fighting chance. The Vexari were just the beginning, he concluded, but we've proven that they can be defeated. We have the technology now. We have the knowledge. Earth is gone, but humanity survives. And as long as we survive, we will fight back. The message was sent ahead in a beacon drone, racing toward the Alliance signal much faster than the damaged Harbinger could travel. Days later, they received a response. A colony of 8 million humans and Alliance refugees had established themselves on a distant planet they named Hope. They were building defenses, preparing for the coming storm. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Hayes looked at the stars with new determination. Earth had fallen, but from its ashes had risen something unexpected. Chance to save what remained. The single human warship that had changed the course of the war now carried something even more powerful than its weapon: knowledge of the true enemy and how to fight them. "We are no longer running," Hayes told his crew as they plotted their course to Hope. "From this moment forward, we hunt."